Welcome. My name is Jason. I'm glad you're here. This channel is about offering sermon ideas that you can run with. Today's passage is Exodus 33, 12 to 23. This is the famous Show Me Your Glory event. Moses wants to experience the fullness of God's favor. God then places Moses in the cleft of the rock as his glory passes by. Because no one can survive, no one can handle the fullness of God's presence unprotected. This story actually begins a few months earlier in Exodus 17. The people, the Israelites, are in the wilderness and they're thirsty. God tells Moses to strike the rock. He does, and from it flows water that provides salvation for the people. 1,000 years after that, Paul tells us plainly that the rock was Christ. This sermon idea is presupposing that the cleft rock in Exodus 33 is the rock that Moses struck in Exodus 17. This means that the cleft in the rock are the wounds of Christ. And by looking at what the cleft meant for Moses, we can learn what the wounds of Christ mean for us. There are 3 parallels I want to point out here. First, the cleft in the rock would have provided identification of the meeting place. God describes the rock with a very curious, a place by me. Likewise, the wounds of Christ identify the risen Lord to us. As we see in the story of Thomas in John 20, Christ is our meeting place. It's where we see the glory pass by. Second is provision. The cleft is where water poured out, providing salvation for the people. Likewise, the wounds are where the blood of the Lamb is shed from, that provides salvation for us. Lastly is protection. The cleft in the rock provides an access point for Moses to hide in, providing him protection from the glory of God passing by. Where the water once came out is where Moses climbs in. The wounds of Christ for us provide an access point to the fullness of God's presence, where no one can stand and live unprotected. Let's review. The wounds of Christ are like the cleft in the rock. They identify Christ as our meeting point. They provide salvation by the shedding of the blood of the Lamb. And they protect us as we strive to enter and live in the fullness of God's presence. Without the wounds, Jesus lives, but we die. But by striking him, Jesus dies and we live. Moses hid in the cleft that he himself created. It's our sin that renders the Lord stricken. Yet, in those very wounds is where we now hide. So remember, Exodus 33 teaches us that you need the rock to be in the glory, and you need the cleft to be in the rock. And that'll preach.